We start now the last module for this course, which addresses the last process that we need to investigate, which is the logistic process. So the last module will be focused to give you an understanding of how to manage logistic activities with SAP ERP. As usual, we structure the description of the content starting from some general concept related to logistics and warehouse management. Then we will deep dive into data management of logistic activities in SAP ERP, and then we will describe which are the main process of logistic activities and warehouse management and how SAP ERP support these type of processes. Let's start with the main concept. First of all, when we talk about warehouse management or logistic, we intend all the processes that enable companies to manage materials more effectively. In particular, we can separate two big categories of processes, which is storage, which are all the activities related to keep inventories, guarantee some coverage in terms of safety stock, keep the goods safe, and so on. So all that is related to inventory management, while instead on the other side we have also flow management, which is instead managing all the activities that are related to logistic and inventory management, meaning transfers the flow, picking goods, handling and stocking parts, goods into the warehouses, categorize these goods and services in the part of the warehouses where they need to be put, and so on. So we will now give some details about these two big group of activities in order so to better understand what warehouse management and logistic is about. First of all, related to the storage, we need to first of all say that when we refer to warehouse and warehouse management, we can distinguish two types of warehouses. The first type of warehouses is what we can call warehouse with stock. Warehouses with stock are places where materials are stored, handled, and picked upon request of a customer request. So they are the places where that support the order fulfillment process. So there are places where materials is stored, there are places where inventory management is carried out, and when materials is handled and picked upon request of an external customer. Then we distinguish this type of inventory because we have also what we call inventories without warehouse, which are named transit point, because their material is not stored but is in transit. In particular, transit points are used especially for optimizing transportation activities, because thanks to transit point, companies have the possibility to define or to redefine or to combine product in order to reach the right product mix, or in order to optimize delivery for customer within the same geographical areas or for customer with the same needs. So warehouses is a unit of analysis for logistics and for inventory management, while instead the transit point are a unit of analysis for logistics, but they are useful especially for transportation activities. Here you see a summary of what I briefly described before. So in warehouses there is a policy of inventory management. So all that we briefly discussed in materials planning and production planning and control apply to warehouse. So they are a part of the production system where goods are stored, and so there's the need to plan how inventory is managed in that building, in that places. While instead, as in transit point, no stock is present, no inventory management policy need to be defined, and it's just a matter of organizing what we call sorting activities. So the role of transit point is to be facilities supporting activities like repacking, like cross-docking, and like delivery. I won't deep dive too much on this because these are technical logistic concept, but just to give you an idea of what we intend for sorting activities, we can see this figure. So this is an example of what can happen in a transit point. So we have a vehicle here on the left coming from the central warehouse with all the product that are produced by all the plant. So all the plant produce products and send them to the central warehouse. From the central warehouse, we have a vehicle which is transporting all the product coming from the plant and stored in the central warehouse, which is warehouse with stock. They are transported until the vehicle reach a transit point. In the transit point, material are unpacked and allocated to a new transportation route. You see that here. They are unpacked and sent to different transportation route. In particular, we will have local vehicle that will upload product and material which are specifically needed by regional market or specific customer according to their needs. So we unpacked the whole variety of product and distribute them in local route according to the needs of regional market or specific customer. And here, in this case, we have the possibility to maximize the variety of product offered to specific customer or specific area. This is just one possible objective of sorting activities. The other is not maximizing the effectiveness, so the variety of product brought to regional market, but maximize the efficiency of transportation. So unpacking the product in order to maximize the saturation of the regional vehicle, which is not the case because you see that here not all the vehicles are completely loaded, but this could be another possible role of transit point. We balance the load in the different vehicles according to the objective of maximizing the vehicle usage. If we look instead at the other role of logistics and warehouse is managing some type of activities, and in particular when we refer to activities related to the logistic process, we can distinguish between inbound flow, which include receiving activities and put away activities, and outbound flow, which include picking and shipping. Of course, in the middle, there is, not an activity, there is the static aspect of logistics, which is storage, so management of warehouses with stock and without stock. Let's deep dive a bit into inbound flow and outbound flow. For inbound flow, we distinguish between receiving and put away. Receiving activities are all the activities related to the reception of inbound goods. So meaning scheduling delivery in proper time, unloading incoming vehicles and incoming transportation fleets or whatever, control the quality of goods, so inspection of goods inbound, and of course managing all the administrative activities that enable the company to verify that what has been received physically match the purchase order that was issued. Instead, if we refer to put away are all the activities which are concerned to the transfer of goods to the storage area. So we have received the goods, and now we have to distribute them to the warehouses, to the storage area. So we need to identify the product, we need to identify the suitable storage location, we need to move the product in the storage area, and of course register the movement so that when someone will look for that specific product, will be able to find it in the right position. Well, instead, if you look at the outbound flow, we distinguish between picking and shipping activities. Picking activities arise when there is a customer order. So there is the need to pick product in order to be delivered to a final customer, which can be internal or external. So goods need to be delivered, and in order to do that, there is first the need to check the order information to understand which goods in which variant need to be picked up, and then once they have been identified, of course, move goods and label package for the shipment. Then, of course, when all is ready, there's a need to organize the transportation, meaning identifying the suitable transportation mode, loading the vehicle chosen, and, of course, stipulate condition with the carrier and record the movement in order so that, also the transaction from a financial perspective is recorded by the information system. To conclude this first overview, let's just make some comment about we refer to activities, we refer to warehouses, but if we think about a warehouse, how is made, what's in the warehouse, which are the main functional areas. In particular, we can distinguish 4 functional areas which are typical of a warehouse: the receiving area, the storage system, the picking system, and or the order assembly, and the shipping area. From a visual perspective, a warehouse, look like this. So sorry, the image is not so high quality, but just to give you an idea, here you see displayed. What you see displayed here is the area where order preparation and packing activities occur. Then here, in this area, the goods are stored, so this is the storage area. Then, of course, you have some offices, some administrative office and service area on the warehouse, so on the field, in order to verify that all is okay. Here is where the goods are picked when they are ready to be or to be shipped or to be received. And of course, finally, these are the point where carrier, fleet, whatever, arrive in order to deliver goods or ship the goods. Now, given this first overview of what logistics and warehouse is, let's try to translate what we discussed now more in ERP, in the ERP perspective. The activities that, all that we discussed very briefly until now, from an ERP perspective, translates in 4 types of good movement: goods receipt, good issue, stock transfer, and transfer posting. The key organizational level associated with inventory management and warehouse management is the storage location. So, the main unit of analysis for us will be the storage location, but we will discuss it later. We already talk about storage location when we address production. Storage location are usually associated with plants, which in turn are associated with company codes. More, we are talking about warehouse, good movements, so inventory management is involved, and so remember that inventory management is concerned with material movement. So the material master, in particular plant data storage view of the material master, will be one of the most relevant master data needed to understand warehouse management in ERP. Let's start with goods receipt. Goods receipt is a movement of material into the inventory. So we receive the goods and we bring them to the inventory. And of course, the result of this is that inventory increase. We receive goods, when bring it to the inventory increase. I mean, very briefly, we already discussed this type of movement because when we analyze procurement activities, we see that when business receive materials, components, semi-finished goods, and so on from a vendor, these require reception on good, check of quality control, match purchase order with delivery document, and so on. And then, if all is okay, they can be registered as okay, and I mean, put in stock that can be used for production or for new distribution or transportation. Please remember that every time there is a good receipt, two types of documents are created. So both material documents and financial accounting document. And more, I mean, remember that whenever goods are received, there is not just a system transaction, so creation of material document or and financial accounting document, but also physical activities that are needed to manage this type of good movement, because once they are received, I mean, goods need to be placed in an appropriate storage location with an appropriate status, like unrestricted, quality inspection, and so on. So remember that there is, I mean, an administrative aspect of good receipt, but also a physical aspect of good receipt that need to be taken into consideration. And again, we usually refer to the fact that we post, I mean, in the ideal situation, you will always see that good receipt is posted in the system upon the existence of an order. However, please consider that it can happen that you can post goods receipt, or you can force in the system goods receipt posting, even if an order is not existing. I mean, it can happen, for example, when you receive something unplanned from vendor, or you receive something in return from the customer which was not planned, and I mean, this can be because it was really unplanned, so the vendor deliver you something that you did not expect to be delivered, or the customer return a product that you think that they're good, or because just someone forgot to put in the system the fact that a delivery from the customer or the vendor was expected. So just please consider both scenarios. The opposite, the complementary of God's receipt is God's issue. I mean, in contrast to God's receipt, God's issue results in a decrease on inventories. Means that I'm selling, I'm shipping something, or to an internal customer, to an external customer, through the fulfillment process, which has as a final point the fact that some material, some goods, some product, some whatever needs to be shipped to someone who is requesting these goods against a sales order. So again, this is something that happened according to the existence of another important document. So an order was a procurement order, purchase order before. It is a sales order in this case. Also in this case, please remember that whenever you register, you post a good issue, both a material documents and the financial documents need to be generated, because there is a practical and a financial impact, and again, some physical activities need to be put in place. And also in this case, this is the ideal state. I mean, you can post, you can register a good issue even if you don't have as a reference a sales order or an order document, because there can be some good issue unplanned case, like sampling of product, like scrap, or internal consumption informally requested, so without putting a formal sales order when the request comes, for example, from another plant or another company within a same group. Then we have transfer posting. Transfer posting is something which is less intuitive than the previous two. But very simply, in logistic activities, transfer postings is used in order to change the status or the type of materials in stock. Again, remember from what we discussed in the procurement, in the production, that when we refer to a material, 4 common stock statuses are present, so are restricted, in quality inspection, blocked, and in transit. Every time you need to change the status of the materials, of the goods in your warehouses, you need to register a transfer posting movement. For example, I just make it doesn't imply that the materials is physically moved. It can be just a transition of status, just because the process has progressed in its activities. I just show in two examples of that. The first one is material to material posting. A material to material posting is used to change the material number of a material. This process is common in industries such as the pharmaceutical industries or the chemical industry, where some materials in input are given, but these same materials change its status and its physical state over time. I make an example of a particular company, tire industry. The tire industry take the natural rubber in input, so which is a type of material, and start being processed through certain phases. After the first phases, what is called natural rubber, so a natural chemical raw material, immediately become, after being physically transformed by the first machinery, immediately become industrial rubber. Industrial rubber is a material which is different from natural rubber. So, just because of the fact that the production process is in place, you need to change the status of the material from one number to the other. This is a transfer posting movement. You will just need to change the material number because a transformation process have been put in place, but no physical movement of material has taken place to determine this. Another type of example is consignment to warehouse stock posting. I don't know how much you know about vendor management inventory or consignment stock. Very briefly, these are typical logistical collaboration between supplier and the buying company, where the inventory of the customer is directly owned and managed by the supplier in order to avoid stock out or to optimize stock level and so on. So the vendor retains the ownership of the inventory of the warehouse of the customer. So that there's the possibility to optimize the inventory management policy. So it will arrive a certain point in which even if the supplier owns my inventory, it will arrive a certain point in which I will need this material. So I need to register in the system the fact that since now the material was owned by the supplier, even if it was in my system, and from now on it's under my ownership. This is typical of retail companies such as Walmart. Most of Walmart distribution center are not managed directly by Walmart, but are managed by or are supervised, at least in some of their part, by the company that gives product to Walmart to be sold to the final customer. However, at a later point in time, it will arrive a moment in which Walmart will take product from its distribution center and will send this product to the point of sales in order to be put on shelves and sold by the customer. So when this bringing the product from the distribution center and sending to the point of sale takes place, there's the need to change the stock status. So change the stock from supplier ownership to Walmart or customer ownership, and this is made by posting, by including in the system a transfer posting movement. Finally, the last movement is what we call stock transfer. Stock transfer takes place whenever a transfer posting need to involve an actual movement of material. So a stock transfer is used to highlight that some materials need to be moved within the enterprise, so within the company, from one organizational level or location to another. So whenever I need to move stock from one place to the other, I need to post a stock transfer in the system. In particular, if we refer to our organizational level are defined in SAP, we have three options to define stock transfer. So between different storage locations within one plant, between different plants in one company, and between different plants in different company codes. Stock transfer may require stock transportation order, but we will talk later about stock transportation order. Regardless of if we are in the scenario of moving materials between storage location within one plant, between plants in one company code, or between plants in different company code, which are the three different scenarios in an increasing level of complexity, there are essentially three options that are available for moving materials, so for registering stock transfer: the one-step procedure, the two-step procedure, and the stock transportation order. Let's discuss it briefly. Let's start with the difference between the one-step procedure and two-step procedure. First of all, material movement consists of two tasks: goods issue and good receipt. Issue refers to removing the material from storage at the supply or sending location, and of course receipt involves placing them into the storage at the receiving or destination location. If we are into the one-step procedure, as the name suggests, both tasks are accomplished in a single step. So from a system perspective, a decreasing quantity at the supply location and an increased quantity at the receiving location are recorded in the system simultaneously. And this strategy is appropriate when the two locations are physically close to each other, so there is no significant time lag between issue and receipt, so there is no need to separate these two activities. In contrast, a two-step procedure occurs when the two tasks are completed and registered in separate steps. In particular, the first step, so the good issue, occurs when the materials are removed from storage. At this time, the quantity of inventory is reduced in the supply location and simultaneously increased by the same amount at the destination location. However, as the materials don't arrive immediately at the destination location, probably because there is a geographical distance or some administrative process in place, they are placed in the transit stock status at this location. So they are not in a restricted use or as physically present, but they are put in transit stock. Later, when they will be physically received at the destination location, in the second step, so the goods received will take place and will change their status from in transit to, for example, a restricted use. Companies usually use the two-step movement when there is a time lag between the two steps. So, for example, when the locations are geographically separated by distance, so that we need to take track of these two activities because as there is a lag, if something happens, I have kept these two activities separated, so I'm able to manage them independently. let's see the two procedure from an administrative perspective. In both cases, so in both one-step procedure or two-step procedures, a material document is created. But in the one-step procedure, one material document is created which contains two line items for each material moved, one for the issue at the supplying location and one for the receipt at the receiving location. While instead, during the two-step procedure, two different material documents are created, one for issue and one for receipt. The material document created during the first step include two line items for each material moved, one for the issue and one for the receipt into the in-transit status. While instead the material document created for the receipt for the second step has only one line item. So for each material moved, because we are just registering the movement from the transit to the unrestricted use at the receiving location. Then let's step back to, if you remember, the typology of stock transfer. So locations to storage, or plant to plant, or company code to company code. So now we know that to register stock transfer we have three options: one-step procedure, two-step procedure, and the transportation order, but we need to analyze that. So now that we know that the one-step procedure or two-step procedure can be used, let's analyze for a second the three different type of stock transfer that we have. The first one is storage location to storage location. So within the same company or within the same plant, we just change the storage location. There are, several reasons for moving materials within the same plant. For example, materials can be received from a vendor or from another production area, and can be initially stored in a temporary staging area and then moved to their permanent location later. This is an example. And when this happens, the transfer can be recorded using both the one-step or the two-step procedure, according to, the time distance, of course, as we have within the same storage location, so within the same company. Usually the one-step procedure is preferred as far as no time lag is present for whichever reason. Because materials are typically valued at the plant level rather than at the storage location level, a transfer between storage location in the same plant, does not affect the valuation, so the value of this material. So the value of stock does not change, and so there is no financial impact. So as the value of stock does not change, there is no financial impact and no financial document are created. While instead, let's analyze the plant-to-plant transfer. The plant-to-plant transfer takes place when materials is moved from different plants but within the same company. So we have the same company, different plants, and we move material within the two plants. Again, as we discussed before, materials are valued at the plant level. So materials are valued according to the cost of production. Cost of production can be different from plant to plant. So when we post a plant-to-plant transfer, this can imply a change in the value of materials on the stock. So there is a financial impact. It is a different from what we previously discussed. There is a financial impact. And in particular, one financial document is created independently from the fact that we use a one-step or a two-step movement. Of course, in the two-step method, the financial document is created at the time of the issue when the accounting impact, practically occurs. While instead, no financial document is created at the time of receipt, because material is just in transit. So the reevaluation has not taken place yet. Of course, the material is valued as the accounting principle state at the valuation price of the supplying plant and not of the receiving plant. That's that's what happens usually in the plant-to-plant transfer. So typically, only materials in the unrestricted use status can be moved between plants. They need to be in this status in order for this goods movement to take place. And as you can see, in both the one-step and two-step procedure, the quantity of material in inventory is reduced in the issuing plant, which is plant A in this. So I transfer the material from here to there. So there is a decrease in the quantity of materials in inventory, while instead there is an increase of quantity in the storage location B placed in the plant B. The difference is in the stock status as the receiving plant, because as you can see in the one-step procedure, the materials are placed immediately in the unrestricted use. So there is a direct flow from plant A to plant B, and the material is put immediately in the unrestricted use. While instead in the two-step procedure, being a two-step, the material is first placed in the stock in transit status, and then once the good receipt activities is registered, the material changes status from stock in transit to unrestricted use, meaning that the materials are have actually been received and put in the proper status. Last type of stock transfer is company code to company code. So it means two different companies and movement of materials. Again, also in this case, this type of transfer can be accomplished via both the one-step and the two-step procedure. And the dynamics are similar for from what we discussed in the plant-to-plant transfer, because again, if they are geographically located, I can record the action in one step, or I need to separate in two steps. But in both cases, as we are dealing with two different companies, there is the need to reevaluate materials, also because in this case the two plants are located in different company codes. So at least in the previous case, the plants were located within the same company code. So in this case, two financial documents are created, one for each company code, because they can refer to different type of accounting and chart of account. In particular, one line item is for the material account, and the other, which is named offsetting, is for the clearing account created to accommodate such transfer. So this is something that we already discussed when we deal with accounting in production and so on. Then the plant-to-plant movement and all the stock transfer movement that we discussed by now, are registered, let's say, in an informal way, because the procedure that we discuss right now, so one step or two step, has some limitation. In particular, we never thought about transportation cost. So since now we did not include the transportation cost, we were not able to track progress of transfer. We talk about two-step procedure, but we never talk about how to track how, where, and which status the material is when is while it's moving. And of course, with one-step and two-step procedure, when revaluation of materials occurs, this can only be based on the book value of the materials at the sending plant, and can be a negotiated value or a negotiated price between plants. So there is not the commercial aspect of transferring materials. In order to eliminate this approximation, we need to include the concept of stock transport order, that essentially means that I want to underline the fact that the stock transfers of materials take place because there is a customer who has purchased something from a supplier which has actually sold this type of goods. So whenever I want to highlight the commercial transaction taking place between two parts, so I need to include transportation cost, I want to track progress on transfer, I want to reevaluate the goods at the negotiated price, I need to include the concept of stock transportation order. The stock transportation order is very similar to a purchase order in the purchasing process, except from the fact that it is used for a plant-to-plant movement. So I want to highlight to the fact that two different plants are moving goods and they are doing this through a commercial transaction. So a stock transport order involves all the steps that we discussed from the process that we saw until now, so procurement, fulfillment, and inventory management, and of course depending on the different condition that according to a specific situation we are dealing with. In particular, how we can define the stock transportation order. In three ways. So there are three alternative ways to define stock transportation order. They can be a transport order without delivery, transport order with delivery, or transport order with delivery and billing. So in an increasing level of complexity. Let's start with stock transport order without delivery. So essentially, a stock transport order without delivery, involve steps essentially from purchasing and inventory management. So in this case, the stock transport order is created directly, or linked to other documents like the requisition, and in this case only a two-step procedure is used because we need to separate the God issue and then the God receipt in the plant, and in particular according to this, one financial document is created from the plant-to-plant transfer, and in particular it's created once the goods issue take place in the supplying plant that also drives the price at which the goods are evaluated. If we refer instead to the company code transfer in case of stock transport order without delivery, of course, again, two financial documents are created. Let's see how the stock transport order without delivery works. As you can see, it's the receiving plant. Please remember that is the receiving plant that so the buyer that create the stock transport order, because it's like if it were a purchase order. So the receiving plant creates the stock transport order. Which can be linked or not to other documents such as purchase requisition. And once this takes place, a God issue is posted against this sale transportation order. So this generates the need to issue some goods at the supplying plant. So at this point, the quantity in unrestricted use is reduced at the sending plant, and the stock in transit is increased at the receiving plant. And so a material document with two line items is created to record this movement. So according to this, inventory is decreased on one part, and stock in transit is posted on the receiving plant. When the materials then arrive at the receiving plant, a good receipt is recorded as it happens in the procurement process. I mean, is exactly what happened when we talk about the purchase order, while instead in this case we have a stock transport order. So once we record goods receipt against the purchase order and we verify that all is okay, we can then transform the stock in transit in stock in unrestricted use. Instead, if we refer to stock transport orders with delivery, we include the fact that the shipping related tasks need to be managed by the supplying plant, so by the seller. While instead, in the first case, the delivery task was in charge of the receiving plant. Why it is interesting to highlight this scenario? Because when we talk about the fulfillment process, we should remember the fact that the shipping step include additional tasks, such as creating a delivery document, picking activities and packing activities. So when a company uses a stock transport order with the delivery scenario, the sending plant will first create a delivery document prior to the goods issue. And these documents will be needed to pick, pack, and ship the materials to the customer, because in this case the delivery activities is up to the supplier. Then when the stock transport order with delivery is in place, it is managed like if it was a sales order with the receiving plan acting the role of the customer, and the sending plant acting with the role of the vendor. So once the delivery document has been created, the rest of the shipping tasks, so pick and pack, are completed, and goods issue is posted. Then once arrived at the receiving plant, the procedure is the same. So the stock is put in transit, then the goods receipt is verified that the materials that has arrived is match the stock transport order, and if it match, the material is then confirmed and put in unrestricted use. Finally, if we include also the billing activity, so if we reach also the stock transport order with delivery and billing, we reach which is the most appropriate scenario for intercompany transfer, because we include both the delivery documents, so the shipping step, but also the administrative steps, so the billing activities from the fulfillment process at the sending step and the sending plant. So we include also the invoice verification step from the procurement process at the receiving plant. In particular, in the figure you see how this takes place with the two-step procedure. So a stock transport order is created at the receiving plant. In response to the need of acquire some materials. In this case, differently from what happened in the previous two scenarios, a purchase price is included in the sale transportation order based on pricing condition and info records previously established or established in this case. In reaction to this, the supplier create a delivery document authorizing the shipment, because is stock transport order with delivery, so shipping activities are in charge of the seller. Then when the company receive the materials at the receiving plants, again goods received is recorded against the sales transportation unit, sales transportation order, and if all is okay, from stock in transit, the material are transformed into the unrestricted used. However, there is also the administrative task in parallel. When goods are issued, a bill is created from the supply plant and is sent to the receiving plant. Of course, while here we need to match the stock transport order with the unrestricted use, with the invoice verification we need to align everything. So we need to verify that the invoice is aligned with the material which has been recorded and which is put in unrestricted use with the initial stock transport order that was issued at the beginning of